Since the start of the pandemic across the country, more and more children are forced to stay at home, resulting in more students becoming disengaged from or deprived entirely of their education. To continuously promote reading literacy among children, the Department of Education conducted Brigada Pagbasa, a year-round reading project dubbed to help our learners improve their reading skills with the help of teachers in collaboration with our reading volunteers in the community. In addition, we also have our National Book Development Month and our annual Reading Month celebration, where we conduct and promote different reading activities. Despite the limited situations brought by the COVID-19 pandemic, the reading programs of DepEd never stop. And now, on behalf of the Batanes National Science High School, we will be sharing our virtual culminating activity for the 2021 National Reading Month with the theme, Bawat Bata Bumabasa sa Kabila ng Hamon ng Pandemya. Sit back and relax because you will be witnessing different performances from our talented learners.
Ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas.
Bayang magiliw, telas ng sinanganan, alam ng puso, sa dibdib mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, duyan ka ng magiging, sa manlulupig, di ka masisingin, sa dagat at bundok, sa simoy at sa langit mong bakaw, may nilagang tula at awit sa paglayang minamahal, ang kislat ng watawat mo'y tagumpay na
Great day, everyone. The COVID-19 pandemic has disrupted education among our students. This threatens their learning and increase the achievement gap, especially through reading. It is then reading comprehension that is essential for academic progress in general. This is because problems with these skills can affect students' ability to learn other subjects as they make their way through later grades. November 2021 was dubbed as the National Reading and Book Month webinar series for teachers, reading and literacy enthusiasts, with the theme, Bawat Bata Bumabasa sa Kabila ng Hamon ng Pandemya. The Batanes National Science High School teaching staff strongly believe that it is their responsibility to advocate and develop lifelong learners with knowledge and skills to prepare these students in meeting the new normal challenges of education. Different distance learning modalities were formed to help our learners continue their education amidst this pandemic. SDO Batanes, through the leadership of our supportive Schools Division Superintendent, Sir Eduardo C. Escorpizo Jr., and our Assistant Schools Division Superintendent, Ma'am Georgian G. Carriaso, continuously promote and guide us in the department's reading programs to help our learners through Brigada Pagbasa, National Book Development Month, and National Reading Month, which is celebrated annually. This is to maintain and improve reading skills and keep students engaged with books during this crisis. Hence, may I urge our teachers, parents, stakeholders, and reading volunteers to work hand in hand and to help our learners continue to read, develop essential skills, and build resilience. Thank you.
Okay.
Halina, sasama ka ba sa mga bayang napakalayo't ubod ng ganda, nang masilayan ng kalikasang Diyos ang may likha, nang mapagmasdan ng yamang walang katulad na iba? Halina, sasama ka ba sa mga mundong isip ng may akda ang may katha, sa isang mundong tinitirhan ng mga diwata, sa isang mundong ikaw ang taniyag na bida? Kung gayoy, buklatin ang iyong aklat, basahin ang unang pahina. Damdamin ang diwa ng mga salita at bigyang halaga ang natatanging paksa. O di ba? Maglalakbay tayo kahit na may pandemya. Gamit lamang ang libro, isip at ang ating mga mata, kung saan imahinasyon ang magsisilbing ating paa. Isang paglalakbay sa tulong ng hiwaga ng pagbabasa upang mabigyang buhay ang mga salita, upang sabayan ang mga alon ng pahina nang masabayan ang pagbabagong dulot ng agham at teknolohiya. Kaibigan, may pag-asa sa pagbabasa. Buong mundo'y aking nalibot na, maraming tao na ang aking nakasalamuha. Paano ba? Muli, ito ang hiwaga ng pagbabasa. Noong ako ay bata pa, laging nasa tabi sila. Bitbit ang patpat na ipinagtuturo niya upang ako ay makabasa na. Abakada, egaha, ilamana o para sa tauwaya. Mula umaga hanggang gabi, abakada, egaha. Mula bahay hanggang sa ibang lugar, abakada, egaha. Mula paglalaro hanggang sa loob ng tahanan, abakada, egaha. Ha? Para saan pa ang pagbabasa? Sabi ng batang punong-puno ng mga tanong at sabik na malaman ang mga kasagot sa tuloy. Baka dahil nais ni Ina na lumaki akong mulat sa katotohanan. Baka dahil nais ni Ina na ipaglaban ko kung ano ang tama. Sa unay esensya ay hindi makita, ngunit alam mo ba na ito isang matibay na pundasyon upang maging matagumpay sa iyong pagtanda. Sa panahon ngayon, madaming impormasyon ang kumakalat na. Maraming mga pekeng impormasyon naglibana. Kaya't laging tandaan na maging mapanuri at matutong ibahin ang katotohanan sa isang chika. Ang pagbabasa ay isang paghahanda para sa iyong mga hinahangad na makuha. Ito isang paghuhulma sa ating pagkatao at pagbabago sa ating sistema. Ngayong pandemya, bata, magbasa ka nang mawala ang pagkabagot at pagkabagisa, nang mapalawak ang iyong kaalaman at mabigyan ng pag-asa, nang matulungan ang inang bayan, kailangan ka. Kung kaya't, sa huling pagkakataon, halina, sasama ka ba na maglakbay sa mga pahinang napupuno ng mga salitang gigising sa ating pag-iisip sa tuwina? Kaibigan, sasama ka ba?
Anak, pinagbabawal mo nang pumasok sa paralan, kaya kailangan mong mag-alas sa bahay para mabawasan ang kaso ng virus.
Sige po, Nay.
Paulit-ulit ang kahapon, binaon tayo sa hamon, sa paglipas ng taon. Edukasyon ay inalon dahil sa pandemya. Mundo'y panganib ang dala, paaralan ay sinara, naiwan ang kabataan.
Nay, turuan mo ako magbasa, please.
Nak, bukas na lang. Tingnan mo, meron pa akong webinar. Tapos mamaya mag-online signing pa ako. Bukas na lang, anak, ha?
Sige, Nay.
Ang gawain na pagbabasa, mahirap man itong isagawa. Huwag kalilimutan ang halaga, maluhin man ang dulot ng pandemya. Libo'y buksan at pag-aralan, palawakin ang kaalaman. Magdadala ka saan pa man, nililinang ang isipan. Karunungan ang tunay na yaman, kaya bata tuloy lang sa pagbasa. Mga benepisyo ng pagbabasa, higit pa sa nakikita ng iyong mata.
Nay, tingnan mo, oh, ang galing-galing ko na magbasa. Yay!
Wow, galing naman ng anak. Pagpatuloy mo lang yan, ha? Ang pandemya, hindi ito halang. Ito ay pagsubok sa ating moralidad. Para ay matutunang may tulungan. Isa't isa'y iaahon ngayong pandemya. Tayo na magbasa, lahat tayo ay uunlad. Kaya pa, laban lang, gabay natin ang mga aklat. Tayo na magbasa, lahat tayo ay uunlad. Kaya pa, laban lang, gabay natin ang mga aklat.
The Prince Who Saw the World for the First Time. About 2,500 years ago, in the Himalayan foothills of present-day Nepal, there lived in a great palace a king who was going to have a son. For this son, the king had a particularly grand idea. He would make the child's life perfect. The child would never know a moment of suffering. Every need, every desire would be accounted for at all times. The king built high walls around the palace that prevented the prince from knowing the outside world. He spoiled the child, lavishing him with food and gifts, surrounding him with servants who catered to his every whim. And just as planned, the child grew up ignorant of the routine cruelties of human existence. All of the prince's childhood went on like this, but despite the endless luxury and opulence, the prince became kind of a wrought-up young man. Soon, every experience felt empty and valueless. The problem was that no matter what his father gave him, it never seemed enough, never meant anything. So late one night, the prince snuck out of the palace to see what was beyond its walls. He had a servant drive him through the local village, and what he saw horrified him. For the first time in his life, the prince saw a man bent with age. "What is that?" he asked his servant. "This is an old man," the servant answered. "We'll all grow old one day, prince." The prince was very upset and went back to his palace. The next time, they went out once more. He saw a group of people carrying a dead body. The servant explained to the prince that he was seeing a dead person and said, "One day we will all die." The prince realized that his father had kept him inside the palace to protect him from these things. He asked himself, "Must we all become old, sick, and die? Is there no other way?" Not knowing how to process what he'd seen, the prince ended up blaming his father for the very things his father had tried to do for him. It was the riches, the prince thought, that had made him so miserable, that had made life seem so meaningless. So he decided to run away. But the prince was more like his father than he knew. He had grand ideas too. He wouldn't just run away. He would give up his royalty, his family, and all of his possessions and live in the streets, sleeping in dirt like an animal. There, he would starve himself, torture himself, and beg for scraps of food from strangers for the rest of his life. The next night, the prince snuck out of the palace again, this time never to return. For years he lived as a bum, and as planned, the prince suffered greatly. He suffered through disease, hunger, pain, loneliness, and decay. He confronted the brink of death itself, often limited to eating a single nut each day. A few years went by, then a few more, and then nothing happened. The prince began to notice that his life of suffering wasn't all that it was he thought to be. It wasn't bringing him the insight he desired. It wasn't revealing any deeper mystery of the world or its ultimate purpose. In fact, the prince came to know what the rest of us have always kind of known, that suffering is really depressing. And it's not necessarily that meaningful either. As with being rich, there is no value in suffering when it's done without purpose. And soon, the prince came to the conclusion that his grand idea, like his father's, was in fact a terrible idea, and he should probably go do something else instead. Totally confused, the prince cleaned himself up and went found a big tree near a river. He decided that he would sit under that tree and not get up until he came up with another grand idea. As the legend goes, the confused prince sat under that bohi tree for 49 days and tried to find the answer himself. And in that time, the prince came to a number of profound realizations. Years later, the prince returned to his father. He built his own philosophy and shares it with the world. And this would be its first and central tenet, that pain and loss are inevitable and we should let go of trying to resist them. The prince preached for another 45 years. He had become an old man of 80 years, finally laid down below the sela trees and breathed his last. That man was Siddhartha Gautama, who would eventually become known as Buddha. The prince who saw the world for the first time emphasized the need to check one's views, test ideas, and guard against the possibility of bias. We will all soon realize that life is full of suffering and constant dissatisfaction. The rich suffer because of their riches, the poor suffer because of their poverty. People who pursue worldly pleasures suffer because of their worldly pleasures, and people who abstain from worldly pleasures suffer because of their abstention. This isn't to say that all suffering is equal. Some suffering is certainly more painful than other suffering. But we all suffer nonetheless, and we should never be afraid to confront suffering. Instead, recognize and discover our own right way to approach it, such as changing our outlook, seek right awareness, and learn how to behave right and wisely.
Rock bottle on the track, boy.
Sa panahon nitong pandemya, pansinin ang mga bata. Ibuka iyong mata, bakit tila nagtataka? Ano ang nakita mo? Panay tutok sa telepono. Ba't sila nagkaganto? Tila may sariling mundo. Yan ba ang sinasabing pag-asa ng ating bayan? Ang kanilang ipinaglab ay iyong tatalikuran. Pansinin mo kapatid, ang kaalamang hatid ng librong nasa paligid. Bakit di mo pansinin? Agham sining osensya ay dito mo mababasa sa libro na nilikha ng ating ding mga kapwa. Subukang itabi ang teleponong dala at buksan ng mga librong punong-puno ng ebidensya. Ebidensyang magsasabi na tayo ay may alam at merong pakialam. Halina at patunayan, tayo'y may makakaya. Kunin ang mga libro, simulan ang pagbabasa. Di ba nakakatuwa ang nakikita ng mata? Bagay na may importansya na ating madadala hanggang
Mapakailanman.
Jam gato in your area. Read your libro B. Read your libro B. Read your libro. Read your libro B. Read your libro B. Read your libro B. Read your libro. Read your libro B. Hey guys, it's your boy John Matthew. Kaya tara na't magbasa Pilipino at OG dalagang Pilipina, yeah. Where's the library? Nakalimutan mo ang iyong aklat. Tulo na law, mukhang matamlay na naitatay pengang tinapay. Utak mo, kailangan ng talino, di ba? Nice. Getting knowledge more and more, nagpami twice. Ngayong corona, tara na at magbasa. Bukam ka girl, teka lang girl, buksan mo na ang pahina girl. Dami pong nagtataka anong meron sa pagbabasa. Sabi ko, tara subukan mo kaya. Kaalaman tubig, natututunan tubig. Sa sobrang lit na painom ko ng tubig. Read your libro B. Read your libro B. Read your libro. Read your libro B. Read your libro B. Read your libro B. Read your libro. Read your libro B.
Dr. Seuss said, "The more that you'll read, the more that you'll know. The more that you'll learn, the more places you'll go." Have you ever wondered if reading was never invented? Reading skill is fundamental for a child's academic development. It is the key to learning. Any difficulty with this skill will hinder the student's ability to learn more. The need to keep children learning during this COVID-19 pandemic is crucial because studies show that there is a profound impact when education is interrupted. Not only does learning stop, but students also tend to lose or forget the skills they acquired in school. It is essential that young people have an environment that fosters a love for books and reading. Reading to them, teaching them how to read, and ensuring that they continue to read. Instilling in them the importance of the love for reading. It may sound like an overly simple solution, but it is not. It requires a collective and huge effort. Family support is a first important step. It is said that the full extent of the pandemic's impact on learning won't be clear for months or even years. Education, they say, is uncertain. But we can see how adaptable and resilient and hardworking our teachers are, who, despite the risk of this pandemic, go their way to reach out to the students for learning assistance. To you, my fellow students, let us do our part. However difficult this new normal is, we must learn to deal with it. We can be both a student and a teacher to ourselves, but it could not be done that way at all times. Let us seek help from our parents, guardians, teachers, and friends if we need to. We can be of help to others by just motivating them to do their part too. We might have missed many important things in our usual face-to-face interactions. School, travels, food, friends, family, and a whole lot more. Every child deserves such good things. Every student misses this and that. But we can experience things without actually being there. We can still learn a lot even if we stay home, by just simply reading. Yes, reading. Let us not forget our love for it. Our books, or modules, are just waiting for us to open and flip their pages. Yes, learning is tough. It has become a struggle. But let us remember that we do not just dream and plot our future. We need to work hard for it. Let us value the lessons that come with all these experiences and challenges. They surely will enrich our learning experiences. Thank you.
The pandemic has touched many students with heightened stress, disruptions, and learning hurdles. But let us not deprive them of any opportunity that may improve or develop their reading skills and monitor their reading progress, because any one of us in the community may be part of their success.
I would like to thank our learners for participating, Ma'am Denry, and all the teachers for making this wonderful activity. I enjoyed being part of this, and I hope it sparked with your interest making reading a habit. I want everyone in your own way to promote the love for reading. Sa kabila ng kinakaharap nating pandemya, gawin nating kaugalian ang pagbabasa, maging ito man ay para sa libangan o kaya naman sa paghahanap ng kaalaman. Ako, si Sir Greg Padua III, ang katiwala ng aklatan.
At ako naman si Teacher Denby Ugali na nagsasabing, lamang ang may anak. Isulong natin na ang bawat bata ay lumabasa sa kabila ng hamon ng pandemya.